Okay, good morning, everybody. I hope you guys are doing great. Another beautiful day. I don't know what it's like in New York, but I'm sure it's not getting nice out over there. I see that Benny is really making use of Elite Cafe. Thank God. Very kosher, holy place over there. This is my little plug for them. Hopefully they'll give us some money after. Now what we're saying is that there's a reason why matzah was the primary food in the times of Pesach, the original one, as well as what we do every year. In fact, one of the students texted me after last class saying that he used to eat matzah. I'm not going to say who it is. You see matzah with cream cheese and I think butter or something, jelly. And now he was just stuffing matzah down his face the whole day with excitement without anything on it. And it tasted even better. Rabbi Nachman says that as your emunah increases, your food can actually taste like whatever you want it to. So Bezat Hashem, hopefully we'll all have the schut one day that you could eat whatever you want and have it taste like whatever you want. And now Rav Natan is telling us that there's another very important step here before Pesach. Besides the fact that we have to get rid of the chametz, we're not allowed to eat it, which we're going to see in a moment, means that we have to burn it, and obviously that obviously has spiritual implications. But there's also a different type of Shabbat before Pesach. It's called Shabbat Gadol. Shabbat Gadol. This is the great Shabbat. Shekorin l'Shabbat shelifnei Pesach Shabbat Agadol al Shem Hanes. It's called Shabbat before Pesach, Shabbat Agadol. Why? Because of the miracle. Because the essence of miracles and wonders, they took place within the going out of Mitzrayim. Now, everybody has to understand that the going out of Mitzrayim, again, is not just a one-time circumstance, but really every single time that a person experiences some type of miracle, some type of wonder, something which goes above nature, something hashgacha partit-esque. So really that's coming from Yetziat Mitzrayim. That experience of us going out of Mitzrayim contained all of the future miracles that would ever take place. And this is part of the reason why we need to remember it all the time, because it's the locus and it is the makor, it's the source, the fountainhead for all miracles. Shishideid hamarachot uvitel hateva. What happened there was that we trampled the concept of constellations. We nullified the concept of nature. V'gila hashkachato yiparach ba'olam, and was revealed that Hashem controls the world. And it's not that one leads to the other. It's not that we destroy the concept of Teva and then Hashem's oneness is revealed, but it's actually Hashem's oneness revealing itself that automatically nullifies nature. Like Rabbi Nachman teaches that at the end, when we say that Hashem will be one, His name will be one. So what's the real difference, essential difference between then and now, is then when His unity is revealed, nature is going to be nullified because they go in contradiction to one another. Not in reality, they don't actually contradict each other, but in terms of our perception, they contradict. Because as long as a person believes that whatever's taking place is coming from a force outside of Hashem, so automatically he's not going to see the hashgacha of Hashem in his life. Hakol nimshach b'chinat Shabbat. And now here's the chiddush. That all miracles, all wonders, all experiences of hashgacha pratit, all experiences of things that go beyond and above nature, they're all drawn from this experience, they're all drawn from this phenomenon that's called Shabbat. Shabbat. Because it said about Shabbat that in the future in Olam Haba, it's Kulo Shabbat, which goes to show that what's the essence of Olam Haba? It's Shabbat. Now, this is going to require a little bit of Kabbalistic understanding. We know that there are 10 sfirot, there's 10 mechanisms or 10 revelations of the light of godliness. And within those 10, there's 2 primary female sfirot. Female sfirot, they correspond to the revelation of something in actuality, whereas the male sfirot are often alluding to the potential of godliness to reveal itself, the unlimited potential of it to reveal itself, but not in actuality, where it is the function and it's the power, it's the blessing of the female in the aspect of spirituality, to give birth to potential godliness and actuality. And these two sfirot are called, in the language of Kabbalah and the language of the Hasidic masters, the daughter and the mother, or the lower Shekhinah and the higher Shekhinah. These are the sfirot of Malchut and Bina. Malchut is the lowest sphira, which means kingship, but it's a completely female sphira in the sense that is the revelation, everything that's above it. That's what we're all waiting for. This is what the Mashiach is most connected to, the sphere of Malchut. And then we have this sphere called Bina. It says that in the Midrash Rabbah that women have an extra dose of Bina. The reason is because this highest female sphera, which women, their souls are most rooted in, is called Bina. Bina means understanding. But Bina is also called Aim. It's called the mother figure. Now, the difference between Malchut and Bina is, so to speak, Malchut is down here where Bina is above, or Malchut is here where Bina will be in the future, where at that point the daughter will look just like the mother. That is, that the Shabbat that we have during the week, which is corresponding to Malchut, the seventh day, just like it's the seventh of the lower seven sfirot, it really corresponds to, it's so to speak 1/60th of the future world, Olam Haba, which in the language of Kabbalah is called Bina. All miracles, all wonders, all things which go above and beyond nature, they all come from Olam Haba, which is Kulo Shabbat. Shemisham Mamshich Hashem Yibarach Kivachol. That Hashem, so to speak, draws from the future miracles in the present. This is Rabbi Nachman's essential novelty in understanding why the world around us appears to be kulo suffering, not kulo Shabbat, but kulo Gehenim. How could it be that the world is filled with so much suffering, and yet we know that at times Hashem reveals himself to us? So which one is it? Is this present state of existence one of constriction and narrowness and suffering? Or is this a time in which Hashem can reveal himself, his light, his love, his kindness? And the answer is it's both. But how is it both? So Rabbi Nachman says, because the standard modus operandi for this world is that of constriction or suffering. And the amuna of a Jew, it actually causes that Hashem, from the future state of existence, when nature is nullified, he then reveals himself and draws from that place from the future and draws it into the present. Almost like a parallel state of existence that Hashem is, so to speak, taking from that place and bringing here. It's almost like at the beach. You know, my kids are going to the beach now. You take water from the ocean and then you bring it into the place where you make the sandcastle. So you made your sandcastle over here. It takes time to build, but you want water. There's no water where there's sand. It's dry land completely. There is no possible way that you can have water. But how does every kid have water in his sandcastle then? And the answer is he takes his scooper, for lack of a better term, he brings it to the ocean. He draws it out of the ocean and he pours it into the sandcastle. That gives meaning to his sandcastle. That gives water to his sandcastle, gives life to his sandcastle. But he had to draw it from the ocean and bring it back. So too, this mashal, which Hashem just placed into my brain, is actually pretty good. This is the mashal, or the parallel to how Hashem creates miracles in our life. How he reveals himself to us now is that he can't do it from here because this world is kulo sand. It's dry. It's lifeless. So when Hashem wants to show life, when he wants to show love, when he wants to show goodness, when he wants to bring new things into this world, he has to draw it, kiviyachol, so to speak, from the future world, which is connected the yam, which is connected the ocean. He brings the water from there into our sandcastle, into our world, and he reveals himself there. Like the pasuk says in Yechezkel, when it's talking about the future of the Geula, that the end Hashem is going to bring from the end. So we don't need this double lashon in the pasuk. We don't need this double language in the verse in the Torah which says the end comes the end. We don't need both. Just say in the end. Or when comes the end. You don't need the end comes the end. Kemuvar Shambamar. But Rav Natan's bringing from this pasuk is that, so to speak, what brings the end is an actual drawing from the future, that the Kates is always referring to the future. That we know the word of our second forefather, who we referred to in our last class as the broken of the Avot, that of the three matzot, that he corresponds to the middle matzah, Yitzchak, that's Yaakov's father, that's Abraham's son, that we know very little bit about him, except for the fact that he became blind when he was older, that he spent time in the field, that he got married to a woman who very much resembled his mother, that we know that Yitzchak himself, his soul was drawn more from Sarah than from Abraham, which is part of the reason why his nature was so different. The Or HaChaim says this explicitly, that the essence of Yitzchak did not come from Abraham, it came from Sarah, and this is explicit in the Pasukim themselves. And as well, obviously, when you get into the deeper Torah of Kabbalah, especially by the writings, the Kitvei of the Arizal HaKadosh, so he says there that Yitzchak had a completely female soul. So to speak, he was the continued manifestation of his mother Sarah, not of his father Abraham, which is why he was so different from his father. The Arizal says that Yitzchak's name is corresponding to a secret. That is that the word Yitzchak, if you flip the letters around, it's Kates Chai. Kates means the end or the future. Chai means life, true life, spiritual life. That is to say that the end of Yitzchak, meaning the end of this physical world, is Chai, is life. Yitzchak was the most connected to female spirituality. That's why he's connected to Avodah, he's connected to Tefillah, that's why he was outside in the field praying. That's why he had a female soul. So he's Kates Chai. And the whole essence of Yitzchak is laughter. So what's funny about Yitzchak? On paper, Yitzchak is just a life of pain. That Yitzchak was, so to speak, shechted. He was slaughtered by his father. That was his life. That his life was one of self-sacrifice, one of giving over for the sake of his children, just like a mother does for their children. So too, there's a very famous Gemara which explains that at the end of time, when Hashem wants to end our suffering and bring the redemption, all of the forefathers and all of our foremothers, they all come before Hashem and plead our case. They all advocate for us to end the exile, to have a kates, to have an end of the suffering and bring a chai. And in the end, they don't merit a response which is positive until Yitzchak comes. And Yitzchak says, I'm going to take the majority of the suffering on myself. And in this way, Yitzchak was the most messianic of the forefathers, because we know that the Mashiach himself, he actually takes a tremendous amount of suffering on himself for the Jewish people. And he got this from Yitzchak Avinu, because Yitzchak did the same thing. And this is all hinted to in the Akedat Yitzchak, which we allude to on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, where Yitzchak was sacrificed for all of us. Now, even though the Torah, the Pshat, the simple understanding is that Abraham took him off the altar and we never actually did it. However, according to the Zohar, he did actually die. He died a type of death. And this is alluded to by the Arizal, that his name means Kates Chai, that the beginning of his real spiritual life began at the end of his physical life. I gave a drasha, I gave a exposition, I gave a speech over, which was very heartfelt, possibly the rawest of all my speeches. I gave it on Tisha B'Av. I believe it's on our channel. If not, it should be on the Breslov Research Institute channel. But if you type in Tisha B'Av, you can watch it. And I explained there something which is very deep, which is hard to fathom. And that is that most of us are constantly trying to run away from pain. Most of us are constantly trying to run away from constriction, to run away from death. However, the essence of the speech is that, in fact, death is the beginning of life. that even though we resist it, and even though we run away from it, even though we're scared of it, often Hashem brings us to a point of feeling like we're dying. And if we get to a point that we can actually accept and embrace that there's some type of death happening, which is really death of the ego, and we can embrace it, and we can throw it back to Hashem and give it back to Hashem in a way which is healthy, through hibodedut, through bittul, which is the concept of nullification of self, which you assert on your own, then what ends up happening is your kates, your end of your ego becomes chai, becomes real life for you. And you draw a new soul, you draw a new life, you draw redemption, you draw geula. Nimsa, consequently, as a result, she'ikar yitziat Mitzrayim nimshach min bechinat Shabbat. The essence of the going out of Mitzrayim, it's drawn from the concept of Shabbat. Shu bechinat olam haba, because Shabbat is the concept of olam haba. And we're saying that all miracles do not come from this world. So the reason why we're constrained and constricted in the land of Mitzrayim was because the land of Mitzrayim is the greatest manifestation of the sandcastle. It is the most explicit, most physical, most concretized aspect of this physical world, which is the cause of our suffering. We need to draw water from the ocean, from the mikveh, from olam haba, which is really the concept of Shabbat or Bina. Now, interestingly, I'm just going to bring a Zohar because I think that it's very pertinent now. That is, how does this practically apply to my life? Okay, so the essence of leaving Mitzrayim, the essence of leaving slavery comes from Shabbat. What does that mean for me? So we know that Mitzrayim covers all type of suffering. So any type of suffering that a person goes through, whether it's emotional or physical, psychological or spiritual, obviously primarily, it's all called Mitzrayim. So that means that the key to my redemption is Shabbat. Now, does he mean the keeping of Shabbat? Now, we know that the Gemara says that a person who keeps Shabbat twice, he leaves all his suffering behind. But there's many people in this class who have kept Shabbat twice, and they never left their suffering behind. So obviously, there is a difference between the actual act of Shabbat and the essence of Shabbat. Now, the Zohar says something very, very fundamental. That is that one of the code words for the tzaddik emet, one of the code words for the true tzaddik, the one in whom brings you out of your suffering, he himself is called Shabbat. That Moshe Rabbeinu, his name is Shabbat. Where do we see this? Because the actual experience of Shabbat came from Moshe himself. Moshe was never a slave. This is alluding to the fact that, so to speak, he comes from the future. He comes from a world in which it's not Mitzrayim. So he doesn't know slavery, he doesn't know servitude, because he's not engraved in this physical world. He is above it. And because of that, he's able to come from outside and to show us two things. One, that even though we think we're free, we're really enslaved to something, either ideas, ideologies, desires, ego, and the list goes on and on. And he comes to release us from that prison. This is why it says in the Gemara something fascinating, which on paper, we don't need a Gemara to teach us this. That is that a prisoner can't release himself from prison. Okay, great. Why do you need the Torah to teach you that? The Gemara is the deepest thing in the world, even in terms of logic. That we know that at Ivy League schools in America, they teach introductions to Gemara at the highest level of learning, where our children, Bezrat Hashem, they're all going to be learning that thing which the highest students in Harvard Law School learn. Our kids will be learning at the age of 8 to 10 years old at the yeshivas we send them to. So it says there that a prisoner can't release himself from prison. Great. Why do we need the Gemara to teach you that? Because there is a deep secret here. There's something very profound here. That is that a person who is enslaved, who is a prisoner, doesn't know he's enslaved. And this is alluded to by the fact that when Moshe came to tell the Jewish people, you don't have to be slaves anymore, they couldn't hear him. What couldn't they hear? They couldn't hear that they were slaves. So too in the secular world, if you came to a person and told him, by the way, you're entrapped by the media, you're entrapped by social media, you're entrapped by secular wisdom, you're entrapped by being enslaved by your physical desires. So they would look at you like you're a religious fanatic. They wouldn't hear you. So too, it said that they couldn't hear Moshe because they had shortness of breath. That the part of the physical world, part of Mitzrayim, part of suffering, is it causes a person not to be able to think clearly. And this is where you need Shabbat, because Shabbat is a time when there's no work, there's no toiling, there's no enmeshment with the physical world. I'm able to take a step back. So this is the concept of the tzaddik in our life, and this is why Rabbi Nachman says that he kashrut with the tzaddik Yisod Olam. Attachment to a true spiritual master is the key to leaving your suffering behind, and it's the most important thing that a person can do, because the tzaddik is Shabbat himself, because he, so to speak, is drawn from the future world, like the story of the lost princess, that there is a king and there's a viceroy and there's a lost princess, and the lost princess, who represents us, the Jewish people, is taken from that place which we're going to call Olam Haba, the future world that's all good, and is taken down to a place which is called evil, which is called bad. And in that place, the Jewish people become the wife to the king there, that we become enslaved to Paro. And the viceroy, who represents the tzaddik in that story, at least according to one explanation. So the tzaddik, he says, give me a horse, give me money, and give me a servant, and I'm going to go down to that place and go find her, which is the illusion of the tzaddik, or Moshe Rabbeinu, coming down to Mitzrayim to free the Jewish people from Paro. Alken Gam, therefore Pesach nitod Shabbat. Therefore Pesach itself is called Shabbat. Now, this is a wonderful allusion to the tzaddik. Why? Because like I've told you many times before, that the gematria of Pesach, the gematria of Passover, the same numerical value of Pesach, of redemption, is that of Nachman. If you look at the numerical value of Pesach, if you look at the numerical value of Nachman, you'll see that they're both 148. So Rav Natan saying that's the reason why Pesach is called Shabbat, because the tzaddik is called Shabbat, and Pesach, or the tzaddik, is the key to you leaving behind your exile. Kamoshe Katuv, like it says, Utzvartem lechem mimacharet Shabbat, that you need to count for yourself tomorrow the Shabbat. But it was speaking about the fact that the next day was going to be Pesach. So why is the Torah calling it Shabbat? Because Pesach and Shabbat are one concept. Dainu meaning Pesach. Amru Abatinazal, like it says in Masechet Menachot Samech Vav, Ke'ikar Tochef Anef, because the essence of the strength of the miracle, Shel Pesach of Pesach, Bebechinat Nimshach, it's drawn from Shabbat. So too, Moshe Rabbeinu, when he was speaking about the Jewish people, and Hashem was upset with Moshe because he said that he should be advocating for them, that he should be sticking up for them, even though Moshe should be, when he's with the Jewish people, pushing them to grow spiritually. When it comes to how Moshe is presenting the Jewish people's cases to Hashem, he should be advocating for them, not complaining about them, not talking about their negative qualities, which obviously we have many of them, or the struggles which he's having with us, but that he should advocate for us. And Moshe Rabbeinu says a pasuk in the Torah, which is very interesting, and he says, what am I, their mother? But the way that you can read that is that I am their mother, which according to Kabbalah, Rabbi Nachman brings this in Likutei Moharan. I believe he brings it in the third Torah in Likutei Moharan, maybe even the second. I have to go back and look. Maybe the second Torah in Likutei Moharan. That the tzaddik, he comes from the sphere of Bina, that, so to speak, he represents the source of Torah. And in the sense that he's the source of it, he's like the mother of it. He's the mother figure for the Jewish people. And that according to the Arizal, we actually all wean from, we all are nourished from spiritually from our mother, meaning from Moshe. That all of us are able to grow up, that we're able to become mature, that we're able to develop spiritually only through our mother, who is in fact Moshe. And that's why he alludes to this when he says, am I their mother? Interestingly, I think I told you guys this recently, but Rav Levi Berdichev was known for this in the most amazing way, that he was the guardian of the Jewish people. That Rav Levi Berdichev, he came into a shul, and the rabbi there was giving a speech over to those people, but he was really admonishing them in a very negative, very pejorative way. and talking about how they were the cause of their own suffering, X, Y, and Z. And Rav Levi Berdichev came over to this rabbi and he told him, how come you didn't say the other half of your drasha? How come you didn't say the other half of your sermon? He said, what do you mean? There was no other half. That was what I prepared for. So he said, how come you didn't talk about the part where Hashem threw them into exile, that he took us out of our land, that he destroyed our home in the Beit HaMikdash, that he kicked us out of Eretz Yisrael, that he brought us amongst the non-Jewish world, and he caused us to become assimilated in that world, that he's causing all of our suffering and difficulties and trials and tribulations over here? How come you didn't talk about that part? Alluding to this as part of the reason why we're all struggling so much. So obviously on paper, it's a lot of chutzpah to say such a thing. You know, how could you say such a thing about Hashem and not take responsibility for us? And the answer is that in different times, in different places, Hashem wants us to view things in a different way. That when it comes to how the tzaddik relates to us, so in that case, he's trying to show us our responsibility because that's our power. But when it comes to how he speaks to Hashem about us, so in that case, he's like a mother for his children. She's not speaking about our flaws, our issues, our challenges. Like every mother thinks their children are the best children, the most beautiful, the happiest, the greatest, the smartest. So too, Moshe Rabbeinu or the tzaddik needs to bring our case to Hashem like that. And all of this is actually alluded to by the fact that Shabbat precedes Pesach, meaning to say that the essence of Pesach itself is Shabbat. It's Olam Haba. It's the place of miracles, which Rabbi Nachman teaches in the 7th Torah is Eretz Yisrael. So, which is very fascinating, meaning to say that the end of the exile in Mitzrayim comes from belief in the land of Israel. When a Jew believes in the land of Israel, then in that sense, we're able to leave behind Mitzrayim. When we believe in Olam Haba, we're able to leave behind Olam Hazeh. When we believe in the soul, we're able to leave behind the body. Shekarinoto, like it said about it, Shabbat Hagadol, that this Shabbat is called the Great Shabbat. Al Shem Hanes. Why? The greatness is on the fact that there's miracles. Kikol Anisim, because all the miracles shall yitzir Mitzrayim. All the miracles of the going out of Mitzrayim, Nimshach B'Bechinat Shabbat. They're all drawn from Shabbat. This fits in very well with the Torah and Likut Moran, which we're going to do next, the 7th Torah, Bezrat Hashem, when we finish the 6th Torah soon, where Rabbi Nachman says that all miracles, it's actually brought down by Chazal, our sages, that all the miracles we experience in Chutz La'aretz are actually first sourced in the land of Israel. And this is alluded to by our sages when it says in Masechet Ta'anit that all the rain that comes down in the world is actually called the second rains, the secondary rains, where the primary rain is coming down in the land of Israel. And then it's drawn out from that place into Chutz La'aretz. So too, where were the miracles that took place in Mitzrayim? They were actually drawn from the land of Israel. They were drawn from Shabbat. They were drawn from Pesach. They were drawn from the tzaddik. That Rabbi Nachman says elsewhere in the Likutei Moran that the tzaddik emet, the true tzaddik, is the living manifestation of a human being to that which the land of Israel is. Just like the land of Israel, it says that Hashem's eyes are on it all the time. So too, Hashem's eyes are always on the tzaddik, which is explicit in Tehillim, that Hashem's eyes are always on the tzaddik. So too, just like the land of Israel, on paper looks like any other land, but in fact, it's qualitatively and quantitatively as different as can possibly be. So too, Rabbi Nachman says that the tzaddik of the generation could look like, sound like literally anybody else. And it might look and feel, and you might relate to him as if he's you, because of the way in which he gives over his Torah and the way in which he gives over his experiences. It might mamish seem like it's you reflected to yourself. But in truth, he says he's a whole different beast than you. He's a whole different animal than you, lahavdil. He's a whole different species than you. That just like the land of Israel is a completely different entity than the lands outside, even though it looks the same, so too, the tzaddik emet, the true tzaddik, is a completely different entity than everybody else. And there's many different parallels. There's another beautiful one, Bezrat Hashem, we're going to get to, the one that Rabbi Nachman brings specifically there, which is such a beautiful imagery, That is, what is it that the tzaddik can offer me? What is it that Rabbi Nachman can offer me that I can't have without him? So it says about the land of Israel that it devours its inhabitants. Usually the way that we look at this is in a very negative, pejorative sense. However, one of the novelties of Hasidic exposition of the Torah is it's drawing out positives when they're usually negatives. That curses are actually shown to be blessings. The Babich Rebbe was very famous for this. If you look in the commentary of the Chabad Chumash, you're going to see there so many times that what appears to be a curse from Hashem to the Jewish people, in a very deep way, the Baal Shem Tov teaches, the Talmidei, the students of the Baal Shem Tov teach that they're really blessings in hidden. They're concealed blessings. And he says there, Rabbi Nachman, what's the concealed blessing of the fact that the land of Israel devours its inhabitants? Meaning to say, just like Rabbi Nachman says, when you eat food, the nutrients in the food, the vitamins in the food, the good in the food stays within you and becomes a part of your being. And then on the other hand, all that which is waste matter, all that which is excess, all that which is not the nutrients and the vitamins, but so to speak, holds those nutrients and vitamins until it's the proper time to absorb them and draw them into the body, to draw them into oneself, those become expelled, those leave you completely. So too, Rabbi Nachman says, the land of Israel devouring you is the secret of that all of your good, so to speak, comes out, is pronounced, becomes emphasized, and actualized, and all the negativity of a Jewish person becomes nullified, meaning the ego. The ego is completely nullified. The desires are nullified. Sadness is nullified. Anger is nullified. Anxiety is nullified. Fears are nullified. Confusion is nullified. This is all the concept of the land of Israel devouring of the inhabitant, meaning when you have hikashrut with the tzaddik Yisur Olam, when you have true attachment to Rabbi Nachman, then as a result of that, all your negativity, so to speak, becomes swallowed up whole and becomes thrown up out of the land. It becomes devoured. And what's left is only the good inside of you, or only the tzaddik inside of you. And this is the secret of Rabbi Nachman saying that anybody who connects to me in truth, I'm going to turn him into a tzaddik. But how does he have the gall to say that? How does he know that? The answer is because he understood that he was the Bechina of the land of Israel, that he devours all that which is negative and leaves behind only which is positive. And therefore it's called Gadol. Al Shem Hanisim, on the miracles that they're called Gadol, that they're called great. Like it says, Sapra li et hagadolot asher asa Elisha. Count for me all of the miracles that Elisha did. So what's the connection? The connection is the concept of counting comes on miracles. And the miracles all come from Olam Haba. They all come from the land of Israel. They all come from the tzaddik. Now, interestingly, the Gemara says that every single wonder that Elisha accomplished, he accomplished primarily, specifically, only through tefillah. And in that sense, Rabbi Nachman explains that you might ask yourself, can the student ever be greater than the teacher? So Rabbi Nachman has an interesting answer there, whereby him, you would think he would say no, because of his emphasis on the tzaddik emet, and that it can't be passed down, so to speak. At the same time, he says that while the student cannot be greater than the teacher overall, he can be greater in one aspect than his teacher. Now, obviously, as the Torah lesson goes on, he goes to say that even that area in which he's greater, than his teacher is actually coming from his teacher as well. It's just only hidden in potential in his teacher. It's coming out in the students. So too, like when there's genetic predispositions that are in the father and they only manifest themselves in the child, so too the student can show something the teacher doesn't. And that was the case with Elisha versus Eliyahu Navi, that Eliyahu Navi was able to experience miracles through his great righteousness, like the Tzaddik Yisod Olam. But his student, or the concept of Mashiach ben David, he's able to achieve all of his miracles through tefillah alone, which is why Rabbi Nachman says that when the Mashiach comes, his weapon with which he's going to conquer the whole world is going to be tefillah. And that's all the concept of Shabbat. That's all the concept of Olam Haba. This is what we're counting right now. We're counting the miracles. When we read Shnei Demaot Layam Gadol Ein Sham. Now, what's Rabbi Nachman's chiddush in the Quran? How do we draw these miracles? How do we draw hashgacha pratit? How do we draw closeness to the tzaddik? How do we begin to leave our own suffering behind and to draw down hashgacha pratit so that we can experience that Hashem is good, that He loves us, that He cares about us, that He's really taking care of us? And the only reason why we only see nature is because Hashem is concealing Himself for us for the time being. But in reality, if we do something, we can merit to see hashgacha pratit right now. So Rabbi Nachman says there, you do it by crying. Not crying from sadness, not crying from despair, but crying from brokenheartedness. And I know that this concept appears to be very, very subtle. What's the difference really? One of them is coming from Yeush, one of them is coming from hopelessness, and one of them is coming from hope. I'm crying from hope for a better future. And I'm mourning over my past. But it's for a better future because I believe it can happen. But if I'm crying from sadness, that means that I'm crying from despair. That's not the type of crying that lends itself to miracles. But if a Jew in his Hippolyte, he goes out to the field after this, he goes out to the forest after this, he goes to the park, he goes into some type of private space, and he cries to Hashem from hopefulness, from belief, because he simply wants to see Hashem in his life. He wants to feel his Father. He wants to believe in the good that Rabbi Nachman is teaching him, and he cries from that. So he draws hashgacha pratit from the future from that. That those tears, so to speak, that come out of his eyes represent the water that come out of the ocean that are bringing over to the sandcastle. So that's a very beautiful imagery if you could lock that back into the beginning of what we learned so far. Anybody have any questions from today's lesson?
I don't have any questions, but I wasn't on for a week. I feel like I missed a lot. You're moving to Israel. You're not in New York. I missed like, I don't know what happened, but anyway.
Yeah, so we all feel like that. You know, I just have to like apologize in advance to everybody. Everything is happening in a very big like whirlwind. All of a sudden, we didn't anticipate that our move to Israel would take place so quickly or in such a, so to speak, such a haste like Pesach, chipazon. But the way that Hashem is having the whole thing unfold is that we have to leave next week. Because of that, I wanted to see my grandfather before I left, my parents. So my grandfather lives in Florida. So we came down here for the week. Next week, I'm going to be back in New York. And then our flight is on the 25th. So that's the reason for everything that's taking place.
No, that's amazing. Good luck. But I know you
so
said this coming Sunday, you're having a class in Queens, correct?
This coming Sunday will be our final in-person men and women class. So everybody should come and you should bring all your friends and family. You know, we should celebrate everything that we've done so far. You know, it's hashgacha pratit. The truth is, it's been almost exactly 1 year since we started Sion. Our very first class, you guys don't know, beside Benny, because you're all new, thank God. But we started this on Netzach Shebenetzach of Sfirat Omer last year. So we started Sion, at least publicly, with YouTube classes last year during Sfirat Omer. So it's literally been almost 1 year. And obviously the amount of growth, the amount of lives that we've impacted in a very short time has been wondrous. Something from Olam Haba, something from Shabbat, something very, very special. And we hope it only continues more and more. The plan is to only increase our efforts when we get to Israel and I get settled down to make Zion come out of Zion. You know, there's a Devours, there's a prophecy that in the end, the Torah is going to come out of Zion. And obviously, I believe that's true. And that's part of the reason why I'm moving to Israel, because the name Zion is a code word for the name Eretz Yisrael. And I believe, even though it doesn't make sense on paper how we can positively affect more people in America by being in Israel, I believe that this is one of the chidushim of Rabbi Nachman, which is pretty explicit in his advice to us that we should all move there, and that this is what's going to end the exile. But I think the reason is because the Torah, like the Or Chaim explains, the Torah that comes out of the land of Israel is much more powerful, exponentially so, than the Torah in Chutz La'aretz. So I'm hoping with technology and the way that it's set up, as well as we're having a fundraiser very soon, which is very critical and very important to our upcoming year, and my ability to travel across the world. I'm hoping to be able to travel to America multiple times this upcoming year, as well as throughout the world, to spread the light of the tzaddik, to spread the light of Shabbat, of Pesach, hopefully to as many places as Hashem allows me to. And so therefore, I'm for sure going to be continuing the classes. How that's going to look or what that's going to look like, I don't know exactly. So if you guys can please be patient with me as I'm trying to set up over there. The thing that's really going to help me the most, if everybody here understands that this is not my thing, and this is not even the people from Sion's thing, this is all of our thing. We're a family, and even though a lot of us have not met in person, I really feel that we're a family. It's something that I thank Hashem a lot about, this culture that's kind of developed organically, where I feel like we really have a great degree of intimacy and friendship, and this is something which is only going to help our ability to grow and to improve and to mature spiritually, and to help give this over to others as well. So we have a fundraiser which is coming up soon, which because of our recent news about me going to Israel having to take place much sooner than I anticipated, I was hoping to do the fundraiser before I left. I'm not going to be able to. So I think my first trip back to America will be for the fundraiser, and we're looking at probably about mid-June. So if everybody, when the fundraiser comes, can please help to whatever degree they can, and even more important than that, all your friends and family, anybody that you know that they already give tzedakah, or they could give tzedakah, they're capable of it. I really believe this, and I'm sure a lot of you do as well, that this is something different, that this is something life-giving. This is something very important for our generation, and we're all tasting it. But part of the mission which the Baal Shem Tov gave every Jewish man and woman is that this water is not just for us, but that this water is to be spread out to the whole world. Chutza l'maynasecha, that these waters need to be spread out from Olam Haba and to be drawn out across the whole world, from Eretz Yisrael to be drawn across the whole world. So please, when the official announcement of the fundraiser comes out and we start promoting it, please send it out everywhere. The more success we have with that, the quicker I'll be able to do classes, the easier it'll be for me to have as many classes as possible, as well to build on things. You know, ultimately, we would also like to write a book while I'm in Israel, something small, but something powerful, hopefully, and intimate and genuine, relatable, that everybody can have and give over to others. And we have a lot of exciting plans for the future, but it's all really predicated on the success of this fundraiser. So just keep it in the back of your minds. I see that there's a comment here on the bottom. Let me just see what this is. Are you still going to be giving classes on Zoom? For sure. Somebody says here, is Shabbat feminine or masculine? Shabbat is definitely feminine. The name itself of Shabbat alludes to this. The fact that it's the seventh day alludes to this. The fact that on this day you're not allowed to work physically also alludes to this, because the concept of Shabbat is like the moon, that it has no light of its own, which on paper sounds like a curse, but in fact that's its blessing. It's like a womb. So all of the work that you did during the week is considered male. All the 6 days are considered male, and Shabbat is considered female. This is all alluded to by Rabbi Nachman in The Lost Princess, like we spoke about before a little bit, that there's a king that he has 6 sons and 1 daughter, but he loves the 1 daughter the most, and he spends the most time with her, because those 6 children are represented by the 6 days of the week. And that's that 7th child, the daughter that he loves the most and spends the most time with. This is alluding to Shabbat. This is alluding to the feminine dimension of spirituality, which actually Hashem apparently loves the most, which is corresponding to Emunah or faith. There is another question here. B'ezrat Hashem, I'll see you Kol Rav on Sunday in Bezrat Hashem in Israel. I'm leaving too. Oh, Baruch Hashem, you should be matzliach in your move. Your classes are like vitamins to our soul. Beautiful. I'm so happy to hear it. It means a lot to us, and we hope that it improves more and more. I also want to just let everybody know that before I leave, I hope to be having a few more teachers come on board. One of them being Benjamin Roberts, who is our head of promotion and outreach. He is a very talented teacher, giver over of Rabbi Nachman's Torah in a very felt way. He's an expert at Hibodedut, and he's been practicing it for many years, actually longer than I have. And he's very passionate about this. And he's also had a very life-changing effect from Rabbi Nachman's teaching. So there's a beautiful book called Rebbe's Pharmacy, where somebody recently has taken the teachings of a mashpia of Rabbi Nachman's Torah, who's very talented. And the book is very down to earth. There's two different books which he wrote. One of them is specifically focused only on Hibodedut. And I think based on the questions that we've had from a lot of the students about different ways to mix up the Hibodedut, to spice it up, to bring out different elements of it, what are different things we could be focusing on it. So Benjamin Roberts is going to be Bezrat Hashem next week starting to teach from that book, and hopefully you can develop a relationship with him like you have so with me so far. He's obviously different than I am, and that's a good thing, and hopefully you'll be getting different things that you're not getting from me from him as well. We have another student who's been a long-time student of mine ever since even before we made Sion. He's also helped a lot with the organization, a little bit more behind the scenes with the website, with the videos, with promotion. His name is Avraham Aminov. He's very excited as well. I think he's going to start teaching soon, not necessarily from a book per se, but different concepts that are fundamental in Rabbi Nachman's teachings that he feels that he's been able to get a grasp of, that he can give over as well in a practical, down-to-earth way. So hopefully this is also good news for Tzion, that the light is spreading, that the students are spreading, and that's something to look forward to as well coming forward. There is another statement here. I'm currently in the process of making Aliyah 2 Bezrat Hashem this summer. Okay, Hatzlacha Rabbah. I hope that you're successful in that as well. Can Shabbat and the Torah be sisters? That's a great question. The Torah and Shabbat are more like siblings. The Torah is usually considered the male dimension of spirituality, whereas Shabbat is considered the female dimension of spirituality. The learning of Torah is called spiritually male, and tefillah is called spiritually female. Now, Rabbi Nachman says, which is very progressive, he said 200 years ago, which we're going to learn in our next lesson, when is redemption going to take place? Only when the world conceives that men and women are equal, which is interesting. Now, obviously, we say that now, and it's like, it's obvious, it's pashut, it's a davar pashut. However, 200 years ago, there was no such thing as men and female being equal, at least outside of the Jewish world. But what he means is much more than the fact that men and women are looked at as equal, even though obviously that's a part of it, because whatever he means always has to fit in with the simple meaning as well. But what he means a little deeper than that is that when the learning of Torah and the praying to Hashem become equal for every Jew, that's when that Jew is going to have redemption, and that's when the world is going to have redemption at large. When the Jewish world treats Torah and tefillah equally. Like Rabbi Nachman was famous for saying that the Mitnagdim, they say learn, 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 and the Hasidim, they say pray, 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 but I say pray, learn, pray, which is alluding to the fact that he held very much, not just in theory, but also in practice, that praying and learning Torah are absolutely equal and fundamentally parallel. And in that sense, when a person is able to take that on himself, in that way, he's able to as well experience redemption in his own personal life. Are there any questions before we head off the class today? You're welcome. Any questions from today's class?
Rabbeinu?
Is this a question or a statement, David?
Statement.
So wait on the statement. Wait on the statement. Let's see if there's any questions. Put yourself on mute if you can until you get back on to say your statement. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah. So you said something really. You mentioned a quote.
Shlomo, You're a little low. If you can unmute yourself, maybe
Wait, can you hear me now?
a little bit. Maybe you want to sign off and sign back on.
Okay, I'll do that.
In the meantime, while Shlomo's doing that, anybody else want to ask a question? No? Crystal clear? Okay. Shlomo's back on. Okay, Shlomo, take it away. Go ahead, Shlomo.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Kind of. I'm going to try to make it out. It's hard to hear you, but I'm not sure why. Go ahead.
You can try to put my headphones in 1 second.
Wait.
Oh, now we can hear you. Very loud and very deep voice.
Better?
Yeah, perfect. Go ahead.
Wonderful. Okay, so you mentioned this quote that stuck out to me, and you said we can't release ourselves from prison, right? And everyone's a slave to something, and desires, ego, whatever it may be. So, and we can't free ourselves from slavery. So, how exactly do I free myself from desires, from temptations, from addictions, from cravings, from certain things? How do I essentially liberate myself from this exile?
Beautiful. So this is actually Rabbi Nachman's whole entire novelty, which is that because the Gemara says that a person can't free himself, he needs to attach himself to the one who's free. And that person's name is Moshe. That Moshe, just like he was the leader of the generation that left Mitzrayim to begin with, and it's taught by Chazal, it's very clear and explicit that he was free the entire time the Jews were enslaved. And so too, Rabbi Nachman is alluding to the fact that that's what gave him potency in being able to release the slaves of the Jewry, to liberate us, came from the fact that he did not have a slave mindset, that he was not bound down by the physical world, but instead he was lifted up above it. So therefore, Rabbi Nachman says in many different places that the most important thing that you could do every day is to increase your hikashrut to Moshe, to increase your attachment to the tzaddik. And you do that by fulfilling his advice primarily, by learning his Torah every day, by giving tzedakah to the tzaddik. If you have money, this is the primary way in which you give tzedakah. Shlomo, you have not been a part of the classes yet where we have explained the mystical dimension of tzedakah, but you see by Rabbi Nachman, it's one of the most important concepts to him, especially as it comes to attaching yourself to the tzaddik and drawing more power, that his teachings hit you harder. It actually comes about by giving tzedakah to the tzaddik. And the last one is to actually get to his kever somehow, to get to his grave in Uman. And that's the highest level. This is one of the reasons why Rabbi Nachman was very insistent that we get to him once a year, especially by Rosh Hashanah. So, but the main way that you can do it right now in your circumstances is to learn as much as you can of his wisdom every day, and to do your very best to bring it into your life and to actualize the teachings and the advice that you learn on a daily basis, to grow with it. And this is the way that you free yourself.
Awesome, thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions? My daughter is 20 years old. If you guys can just put yourself on mute. Great. Somebody wrote here. My daughter's 20 years old. She's a great person, very compassionate, non-judgmental, and smart. She wants to become Shomer Shabbat, and I don't know why I'm having mixed feelings. We are traditional, but not religious. Maybe I can discuss with you later time if you don't want to. Okay, I don't know if that was supposed to be private or public, but for sure we can discuss it. It's normal that you feel like that, but it's the greatest blessing in the world that your daughter wants to do that, and that's a very good thing to speak to Hashem about in your Ibodedut. What exactly is holding you back from feeling comfortable with that notion, and maybe praying to Hashem that He should help make you feel really excited about the fact that your daughter wants to keep Shabbat, because that's an amazing thing, and it's taught at the end that the children are going to teach the parents, that the son is going to teach the father, or the daughter is going to teach the mother. And that's why you see many people in our generation, specifically my generation, people around their 20s and 30s, there's a huge wave of Bali Tshuva coming, and that are introducing many different things to their parents that was not so before. It's actually a very good sign that the redemption is close. So we can definitely talk elsewhere. Okay. There was a statement from David. You want to say something, David?
Okay. About what we mentioned, like Usfatem lachem mimachorat hashabbat miyom haviachem et omer tenufa. It talks about the Omer, like we've been counting days of the Omer until
Right.
Shavuot.
Right.
One thing I need to ask, like, have you ever been doing Pirkei Avot like every week on Shabbat?
Oh, so that's a good suggestion, David. Thank you for that. If you could put yourself back on mute because it's loud in the Beit Midrash over there. David is talking about a tradition that Jewish people have had for a long time, which a lot of the people in the class may not know of. There is a Masechet of the Gemara. There's a section of the Oral Torah, which is the most widely learned, and it's usually the first thing that's learned by Jews outside of the written Torah, and it's called Pirkei Avot, or the Ethics of Our Fathers. You're going to see there's many different editions of it. You can look for it online, and it's pretty much all of the different fundamental aspects of our faith, of Jewish spirituality, encompassed by teachings of our sages in a bullet point manner. And we actually start to read this. There's about 5 to 10 chapters of this. We read this during the period of Surat Omer. Every Shabbat, we read a different section. So if anybody has not yet started to do that, that's a very good thing to do, and it's a propitious time to do so. And it will enhance for sure this time period of growth, personal growth, collective growth. So if anybody wants to look up, it's called Pirkei Avot. In Hebrew, it's called Ethics of Our Fathers. In English, and actually Breslov Research Institute has a sale right now, 30% off. I don't work for them, I'm just telling you because I love their stuff. So they sell their books very, very cheap. They actually have taken all of Rabbi Nachman's commentary and culled it together to make it look, so to speak, like he gave a commentary in Pirkei Avot on Ethics of Our Fathers. And you can buy it online for 30% off. So it's going to have all of the different teachings from our sages, and then all of Rabbi Nachman or Rabbi Natan's commentary to try to explain those teachings in a practical, deep way. So you guys can look that up online. Okay, guys. Yeah.
I'm just only asking because if you ever do Pirkei Avot, like from the week after Pesach until Shavuot.
Yes, I have experience with this.
And also in Shuvah Yisrael and Rabbi Pinto show, they've been doing it like right after the Chazara Hashatz of Musaf. They say Kol Yisrael Yesh Aleim Chelek L'Olam Haba. Then they continue to Pirkei Avot.
It's beautiful.
They say Pirkei Avot. Then they say Rabbi Chananya.
Very nice.
They say Pirkei Avot. Then they say Rabbi Chananya. Then into Korbanot.
Very nice. Okay, great. Yofi. Okay, guys, everybody have an amazing, amazing day.